Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We're opening it up for questions.
David Eichholt, 24/7 Sports. Brian, you get Joe Lavis getting his first career start tomorrow. What's been your approach throughout the bowl prep? Is it install 18 to 20 plays that he's sort of mastered? You kind of install some new wrinkles, but what's been your approach with Joe, just given his playing style and lack of experience right now?
Yeah, well, Joe's been around for several years. He's been in the offense. He's worked through spring ball and training camp. And then this year he's traveled with us and he's been up there with the first and second group and gotten reps at times. So there's a base there. There's a knowledge base that you're not starting from scratch. So obviously that makes it a little easier. But it's like anyone else. You want to tailor what you're doing to the player's strengths. And I think Joe has some different strengths than maybe the two guys that have played for us the last several years. So you want to make sure that you're incorporating that into what you do. And then on top of it, you want to match up what you're doing against what you're going to see as well, right? So we see our defense every day in bowl prep. That's one thing. But to see Kentucky's defense is a whole different animal. Play a different front, base out of some different coverages. So you want to make sure that you're doing things that are going to be reasonably successful against who you're playing. At the end of the day, what's the number? It's not broad. It never is, though. I think that's a misconception. We're never walking into a game with 150 calls on the sheet, right? So you're trying to walk into the game and it's like any other week. What's going to work? What's going to be good? And then how many ways can you dress that up and run it while incorporating the particular strengths of whatever personnel you have on the field that week, be it the quarterback or anyone else.
Hey, Brian.
Chad.
If you were to give yourself a self-evaluation, there you got one more game as offensive coordinator this year, how would you answer that?
I would say I did the best I could this year with the pieces that we had to try to put the team in position to win. Was I successful every week? No. Was I successful enough? I wish we would have won every game we played. That's the bottom line to me. So my evaluation is simple. Are we doing what we need to do to help us win football games? And I think the record speaks for itself. We are who our record says we are.
On the left side.
This way. Kennington Smith, Des Moines Register. This question is for Coach Parker. How important have these bowl practices been to the development at depth at cornerback? And what have you seen from guys like TJ Hall, Deshaun Lee, Jamison Hines, or maybe a few others, in this stretch in December?
Yeah, I think it's been very helpful for the last, 3 or 4 weeks of these guys practicing and getting an opportunity to go in there. Probably the biggest guy that I've seen have jumped is probably Xavier. He's really done a good job of taking, a lot of reps and the improvement with his, just understanding and the way he moves about on the field has changed in the last 3 or 4 weeks. I'm really happy to see, it's going to be his first start and see how he does, but really impressed with what he's doing.
John Steppe, The Gazette. For Brian, you talked about changes going into this coming this past season. Obviously, it didn't work out. Why do you think it didn't work out, and what changes do you anticipate making next year to avoid this script from repeating another year?
I think every year you go into the offseason and you look at things you did well, things you didn't do well. How do we accentuate the things we did well? How do we improve the things we didn't do well? And quite frankly, I think in some regards, progress was made. In other regards, not as much. And then in other regards, I think we regressed in some areas. So the challenge in January and February, which really has already begun throughout December, is identifying all three of those areas and then figuring out the best plan of attack moving into next year. And certainly you want to take into account personnel. You want to take into account scheduling to the best that you can, right? You know who you're going to play well in advance. So it goes back to the question that Dave asked earlier. Essentially, you're trying to do that with a big picture understanding in January and February, then moving into March and begin to rep those things. We can hear you, Tom.
Anyway, question for both of you guys. Phil, you kind of touched on it, but any younger guys that beyond the defensive backs that have developed during bowl prep that kind of jumped out at you, and Brian, also, how's Sam LaPorta as an emergency quarterback?
I'll let you start.
Okay. Starting out, I think one guy is really jumped out. I know he's been banged up a little bit, but Jay Higgins has taken a bigger role in seeing how he's developing and become a leader. Obviously, we're losing Jack, so that's going to help us in the linebackers between him and Seth. And if Seth we're losing him, so I think that's a good guy that seeing a lot of progress with it. Down in the front, I think all the guys up front are doing a really good job. That we're seeing improvement, and I thought, you win with the up front guys. If you don't have up front guys, your up front 7 guys, it's hard to win games. And I think they've all been doing a pretty good job. And it's just the way they go about their work. And we're excited to see some of these guys, how many steps they've taken. So.
As far as young guys go, Tom, it's been nice. Jazzy and Patterson is a guy that's really jumped out to me throughout bowl prep. Maybe didn't get as many opportunities throughout the season when we were working 3 backs, and played a little bit in a couple games very sparingly. But just the way he approaches every day. I heard the head coach talk about Jack Campbell and seeing things as an opportunity. Jazz is a guy that I would describe the same way. Maybe hopefully he can have the type of career that Jack had, but none of us control our talent, right? We can only control our approach, and his approach is very impressive, the way he goes to work. So he's a guy that's jumped out, and there are several others, but I would single him out just for his approach day to day, and that was true during the season. But now he's been able to get some reps, and it's really showed up. And then as far as Sam Laporta as an emergency quarterback, I've coached some players. I've coached some good players. I don't think you guys are going to get me to lose my composure here. But Sam Laporta is as good a football player as I've ever coached, probably the best one. And he's an exceptional competitor, very talented. But the way he practices, the way he plays, if my son could grow up, if he could just emulate that in whatever he chooses to do, I would be awfully proud of him. And for Sam, it's interesting. I was talking to a gentleman that runs an all-star game, and he was a little upset that Sam wasn't going to play in it, and Sam felt like he had put enough on tape. And I happen to agree with him. I think he's put plenty on tape for NFL teams to evaluate. But he made the comment to him that people are going to question your competitiveness or your character if you don't play in this game. And frankly, I think that's ridiculous. Anybody that's ever been around Sam Laporta, those are the last 2 things you would question. How do I see him as an emergency quarterback? And I think he'll probably make some plays, because that's generally what he does when he has the ball in his hand.
Got a question over here on the left.
This is for Coach Parker. How tough has it been in your evaluation of Kentucky with their quarterback situation? Have you gone back and watched high school game film? I mean, how have you studied their quarterback situation?
Well, we've seen him on some huddle stuff that we've seen, and obviously some of the camps that he's been on throwing the ball. But really, you kind of say how they're going to try to attack us. They have an offense that we prepared for. Of one system is, and now you got a different offensive coordinator going to be calling it. Vince, I'm sure he'll have some tricks up his thing. So it's going to be interesting for us. But basically when it comes down, I think they can only have 11 guys on the field. And so we're going to be, a lot of base defense and understanding it. And we changed it up, make sure we did some run games with the quarterback, maybe a little bit more than the other guy. But right now, I think our preparation has been very good for the last 3 weeks. We've been seeing a lot of different things, a lot of different formations. Sometimes when you go into it, what are you doing? You're practicing this, you're practicing this. Eventually they're going to go out there and we're going to have to play whatever they line up. And I think it all goes back to guys understanding their base principles when they get a call. You got to line up your alignment, your keys, and responsibility on every play. Number 3 simple things to do, but within them 3 words, alignment. How do you line up based on where they're lined up? Okay, what are your keys? What's your responsibility? What are you looking at? And I think that's really the biggest thing that I think you don't see it a lot. Like if you start watching film and you start watching teams and how they play, you got to see things, diagnose it, and then you got to make a quick decision on what your responsibility is. If you're a pass guy, play pass. Hey, even though it's a run, okay, I'm playing pass. Well, see if it's run. Better make sure you double check and see if your pass responsibility is taken care of. Is he blocking? Is he faking it? What is he doing? So there's a lot of things. I think it comes down to alignment, keys, and responsibility. That's it. And obviously, being a competitor, they get all the strength and all that, and the movement wise, and and staying balanced. And I think our guys, for the last 3 weeks have been really doing a good job. So, there'll be just some prizes out there, but I was just, but if you go through your progression, you shouldn't get faked out on those trick plays if you're doing what you're supposed to do. But it's hard now because there's going to be 60, 70 plays in the game. Can somebody concentrate? And the play only lasts, 5 or 6 seconds, right? But you're out there. Can you focus the whole time? Because even before the snap of the ball, your focus has to be on, hey, who's on the field, where they're lined up, who's talking to who. I remember seeing Brady I forget who he was playing. He tapped somebody on the back of the shoulder, wide receiver, and I seen him run a comeback. Well, if that defensive back would have paid attention to him, might have been a better play out there for the defensive back. It's been a while ago. I think it was probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago. But it's just interesting what you see, but you have to gather all that information. And there's a lot of information out there. You should be totally physically and mentally exhausted after the game if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Hey, Brian. Last time we talked to you was before Ohio State game. There was a lot of outside noise after that game. Does any of that make it to you, and what's your reaction when criticism filters your way, and how have you responded?
Is that a serious question?
Sure. Did you read the Ohio article?
No.
Okay.
I feel like we've covered this ground for all the Ohio guys in the room, right? My focus is on doing my job every day. Does criticism make it to me? Of course it does. My wife has criticism for me on a daily basis. All this stuff gets back to me in some form or fashion, and none of it matters because my job is every day to wake up and try to put our players in position to be successful. That's it. And whatever my reaction to it has no bearing on my ability to do my job. So I keep my focus on that. And it's just like Phil said, he's talking about playing defense. I don't think coaching is any different, right? Alignment, keys, responsibility, do your job every day. And if the things don't help you do your job, then you can't spend a lot of time worrying about them.
This is for Brian. This is Scott Docterman with The Athletic. I wanted one element that never changes or can't change is age, and that deals a lot with your offensive line. When you look at Logan Jones flipping over from D tackle to center, what's the progress that he's made in that position? Because he does have a pretty good starter's kit. And then also one player who I think is one of the biggest humans I've ever seen is Jennings Dunker. What's his potential, and how far away is he from, let's say, reaching his max, but certainly reaching it to the point where he makes a real big impact on the field?
Yeah, I think the good news is, like you said, both those guys have a tremendous amount of tools, and they have a tremendous amount of potential. And then it's just a race to maturity. So it's a race to getting them to maximize those things. I think Logan's done an exceptional job for flipping over during spring football, and then ended up starting 12 games for us at center. It's probably, probably doesn't get enough attention. What a tremendous job he's done, because it's not easy. It's very difficult. And in Jennings' case, he dealt with some injuries his freshman year, missed a lot of practice time. And then you're able to get him on the field in spurts in the spring and in the summer. But every time he's been out there, he's made strides, and he's continued to improve. And he's a guy that over the course of the season has really improved and taken some strides. And there's no question he's a big man. And he just kind of walks around. He has a certain demeanor to him. Even the way he turns his head, he reminds me of Arnold Schwarzenegger playing the Terminator. If you cut him open and there was a cyborg underneath, it wouldn't shock me. Although he has a little more personality than that, probably. But he's an exciting guy. He's a young guy with a lot of potential that you're excited to see grow and continue to improve. But we've talked about offensive line development before, and it's, in a perfect world, you put those guys in the oven and you slow cook them. Neither of those guys have had that liberty. That's not their fault. They've handled the circumstance as well as they can. And what I'm excited about is the improvement that they have made, and I'd expect them to continue to make with reps.
We'll have time for one more question after this.
Questions for both Phil and Brian. For Phil, what have you seen from some of the younger linebackers who might have a bigger role next year? And then for Brian, you've gotten an influx of talent through the transfer portal with Cade and all. Are there any specific promises or any specific changes that have been promised to get them to come to an offense that ranked 130th out of 131 teams?
I'll start. Yeah. No. No, there were no promises made. We recruit players to try to fit our system and our program. And we're recruiting people first and players second. And that's never changed. So we're excited about those two guys joining us. But quite frankly, right now, John, my focus is on the football players that are going to play for us tomorrow. And some of them in their last football game. So I look forward to giving them my full attention and focus right now.
Yeah, I think at the linebacker depth, I think Harold's a guy it's actually seeing him grow, and it's kind of funny to sit there and even today's practice, it's more of a polished day. You already had the practice and stuff, but then you see Jack Campbell sitting there, telling him and teaching him as he's leaving the last play, telling him what he needs to do for the next play, and it just that growth right there. Hopefully, we maybe get Jack come back and coach a little bit. But I just think the connection, that the development that he's done, it's all coming from the leadership in that room, with beginning with Seth Benson, Jack, and what Seth Wallace has done with these guys. He's obviously done a great job, and you see the trend of these guys improving. It's I wish they could do it faster, but it's a good thing to see.
Last question.
I'm not going to let you walk off the stage if there's leave money on the table here. But regarding Caleb Johnson, this is for Brian. He's made a lot of growth. It's obvious, and a lot of improvements. But he also seems like he has a lot more potential, a lot more there. What do you see from him? How has he grown through the course of the season, and what do you see for him a year, 2 years down the road?
Well, it's kind of like Logan and Jennings. You asked a question about those two guys. I'd lump any first-year player in the same category. It's kind of like if you go in the weight room, right, and you've never trained, you're going to see some real exponential growth out of the gate. But then things are going to slow down, right? So right now, those guys have been drinking through a fire hose. They've handled it pretty well. Specifically, Caleb, he goes from playing high school football to being a starting running back in the Big Ten Conference and taking a lot of carries. Not easy. Just the physical demand of that is very difficult. So he's handled that very well. He's a guy that I can't think of a time he's missed practice or missed a rep or missed anything due to being nicked up, right? So his durability has been very impressive. And then on top of it, the mental strain, if you just take football apart from the school and the expectations and the attention and some of those things, I think he's handled that very well too. So I'm encouraged by that. From a football standpoint, the easiest thing for a running back is to carry the football. Even within that, you can detail a lot of what they're doing, right? A natural ball carrier, you don't want to overcoach them. But if you can just get their track exactly right to marry the blocking, timing is a huge aspect of what backs do. It's really no different than the passing game. You want to make sure the timing of what they're doing and what they're running is matching the blocking. So you'll always be able to polish that as the years go on and get that tighter and a little cleaner. And I expect that to happen. But without a doubt, the biggest challenge, I think, for running backs moving out of high school football and into college football is pass protection. It's difficult enough from a fundamental aspect to block any kind of blitzing linebacker or secondary player. But just from an assignment standpoint, a lot of times running backs have one of the more difficult jobs on the field. They need to see a lot. And experience is a huge teacher with the pass protection aspect. So I would anticipate as the years go on, he's going to clean a lot of things up and get a lot better. I don't want to guess what it will look like in 2 years. I don't have a crystal ball. But my guess is if he continues operating the way he operates right now, I think his future is probably bright.
Coach Ferentz, Coach Parker, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.